He moaned another woman's name and smiled when I froze. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. Maybe the air conditioner's hum had twisted the sound. But no. The name Chloe slid out of his mouth like muscle memory, soft and familiar, a sound he'd said too many times before. The room went still. My hands tangled in his hair just seconds ago turned cold. He blinked, realizing what he'd said. But instead of panic or apology, a small, embarrassed grin flickered on his face. "It happens," he said. That's what my husband Eric said after moaning another woman's name while making love to me. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just lay there, the ceiling fan chopping the silence into pieces, wondering how many times it had happened before. My name is Lila DeBerry. I'm 38 years old, and last Tuesday night, my marriage quietly ended, though I didn't sign the papers until months later. Eric and I have been married for 9 years together, for almost 11. We have 2 children, 8 and 6. We used to joke that we survived our 20s just to fall apart in our 30s. Turns out it wasn't really a joke. I sat up slowly, pulling the sheet to my chest. "Who's Chloe?" I asked. His eyes darted away. "Lila, come on, you know who she is." "Oh, I know who she is, the ex who texted you last Christmas to say she was thinking about old times." He sighed. "You're overreacting. People slip up sometimes." I stared at him. "You mean you slip up sometimes?" Eric ran a hand through his hair, frustration leaking into his voice. "It's not a big deal. I wasn't even thinking of her. It just came out." "Because her name lives in your mouth," I whispered. He groaned. "God, you're so sensitive. It's just a name, Lila." "A name means everything when you forget the right one," I said quietly. That's when he rolled over, and turned his back to me. "Can we not make this into drama? You know I love you." I didn't answer, because I suddenly realized that love shouldn't sound like dismissal. He fell asleep. I didn't. I lay awake, tracing the cracks on our ceiling. Each one looked like a fracture line in something that used to be strong. At 3 a.m., I wandered into the garage. The smell of cardboard and dust was oddly comforting. Eric's gym gear sat in one corner. His old college trophies, the ones he never threw away, lined a shelf. I ran my fingers across the top of a moving box labeled "Fragile One," we'd never unpacked after our last move. Fragile. That word stayed with me until sunrise. When Eric stumbled into the kitchen at 8 a.m., I was making pancakes for the kids. He kissed my cheek like nothing had happened. The smell of butter made my stomach turn. He noticed my silence and muttered, "You're not seriously mad about last night, right?" I set the spatula down. "You called me by your ex's name, Eric." He shrugged, pouring himself coffee. "And it's not like I cheated. You make it sound like a crime." That was the moment something inside me quietly snapped. Not in rage, but in clarity. "You're right," I said softly. "It's not a crime." He smiled, thinking he'd won. "But it's a confession." He froze the mug halfway to his lips. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, wiping the counter with deliberate calm, "you just told me where your heart really lives." He opened his mouth, probably to throw more excuses, but the kids came running in, asking for syrup. The conversation died there. But something new was born in me that morning. Something sharp. Something steady. At 9:05 a.m., after dropping the kids at school, I sat in my car outside the house, gripping the steering wheel. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked like someone I used to know, a version of me who believed that patience could fix people. She was gone now. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my best friend Sienna, a property manager who once helped me move into this house. "Lila. You still have contacts at that moving company, Sienna, yeah. Why you moving out, Lila?" "Not me. Him." A pause. Then her reply. "Sienna. Oh, damn. What happened?" I didn't answer. Some things don't need explaining. That night, Eric came home late. He smelled faintly of cologne he didn't own. I said nothing, just watched him eat dinner while scrolling on his phone. He looked up once and said, "You're quiet." "I'm learning," I said. "Learning what?" "How to believe people when they show me who they are." He frowned, but didn't ask what I meant. He never did. After the kids went to bed, I stood in the hallway for a long time, listening to their breathing through the door. Their tiny, even breaths reminded me of what really mattered, and what didn't anymore. I went back to our bedroom, the same one where my marriage had died 24 hours ago. The sheets still smelled like betrayal. I took a notebook from the drawer and began writing a list, every item in the house that belonged to him. Shoes, clothes, weights, laptop. His mother's hideous vase he insisted on keeping in the living room. By the time I finished, it was almost dawn. I closed the notebook and looked at the ceiling again. Same cracks, same silence. But this time I wasn't lying there broken. I was waiting for morning. Because if calling out another woman's name just happens, then maybe packing up a liar's life and shipping it to her doorstep just happens too. The morning light felt different, colder, cleaner, like it had burned away something rotten. Eric left for work around 8:30 a.m., humming to himself, still wearing that same casual arrogance. He even kissed my forehead before walking out the door like he hadn't detonated our marriage the night before. The second the car rolled out of the driveway, I exhaled. My hands didn't tremble. My voice didn't shake. I was beyond anger now. There's a strange peace that comes after the breaking point. I pulled out my phone and called Sienna. "Morning," she said cautiously. "You sure about this, Lila?" "Yes," I replied. "Can you get the movers here today, full service? I want everything of his packed and gone before sundown." There was silence. Then her tone sharpened into something fierce and loyal. "I'll make it happen." By 10:15, 2 moving trucks idled in front of my house. A team of 4 men stood waiting on the porch, looking uncertain. "Which room first, ma'am?" the foreman asked. "The master bedroom," I said. "Everything on his side of the closet, marked with blue sticky notes." They nodded and got to work. Each sound, the tape-tearing boxes sliding across the floor drawers, opening, felt like a heartbeat sinking to my calm. Every item that disappeared into a box took a weight off my chest. I labeled each carton carefully: Eric's gym gear, Eric's office, Eric's vanity shirts he never wore but always bragged about. It wasn't revenge, it was clarity in motion. When I got to the garage, I found his old fishing rods and the rusty toolbox he'd insisted on keeping, though he never fixed a thing. For a second, I almost laughed. I peeled off the sticky note marked fragile from the corner and placed it on the box containing his wedding tuxedo. Fitting, I thought. At noon, Sienna arrived, holding 2 iced coffees. She watched the organized chaos unfold with wide eyes. "Girl, this is legendary." I smirked. Petty. Poetic. The foreman approached us, clipboard in hand. "Where are these boxes headed?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a printed address: Chloe Williams, 214, Cedar Lane, the woman whose name my husband whispered like a secret prayer. I handed it over. "Everything goes there. Don't forget the note taped to the front box." He glanced at the envelope I'd left on top, to the right name. He didn't ask questions. Movers never do. They just nodded and started loading the trucks. By 1:00 p.m., the house was half empty, echoing with the sound of change. Sienna watched me, her brow furrowed. "You sure you don't want to wait? Maybe talk to him first." I shook my head. He told me to get over it. This is me getting over it. At 2:30, the last of his belongings disappeared down the street, packed neatly into the truck's dark belly. The silence that followed was almost holy. Then came the locksmith, a middle-aged woman named Renee, who gave me a knowing smile when I explained. "Changing locks after a name-calling incident?" she asked. I blinked. "How did you—" She chuckled, twisting a wrench. "Honey, I've been doing this job 20 years. I've seen it all. Men who accidentally text their exes' women, who accidentally pack their husbands' stuff. You're not crazy. You're just done." I smiled for the first time in 2 days. Exactly. When she finished, she handed me the new keys, cool and silver like a fresh start. "Keep this one safe. New locks, new peace." At 5:47 p.m., my phone started vibrating on the counter. "Eric." I let it ring until it stopped. Then came the first text. "Eric, where's all my stuff?" Another. "Eric." The neighbor said there were moving trucks at the house. "What the hell, Lila?" And another. "Eric, what did you do?" I waited. I wanted the words to hurt, to mirror how it had felt when he'd looked me in the eyes and said it happens. At exactly 6:10 p.m., I typed my reply. "Lila, your things were accidentally delivered to Chloe's address. It happens." 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, my phone rang. I answered, letting the silence drag. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. "Language, Eric. The kids might hear. They're at my dad's." "I know," I said calmly. "That's why I scheduled this for today." You move my stuff to my ex's house. Are you insane?" "It was an accident," I said sweetly. "Sometimes people slip up. Addresses, names, hearts. This isn't funny." "Neither was last night." He sputtered, furious. "You can't just throw me out. This is my house too." I let out a small laugh. "Actually, no. It's my house. I bought it before we married. Remember, you just lived in it." "Lila, open the door right now." "The door's always been open to my husband. Not sure who you are, though." "Don't do this." "You already did." I ended the call. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the driveway, then pounding. "Lila, open this damn door." I walked up slowly and unlocked it, but only halfway. He stood there, hair disheveled, eyes wild. "Where's my stuff?" "Delivered," I said softly. "To Chloe's house." I nodded. "Seems only fair. You called out her name. Figured your belongings might as well go to the right person. He gaped at me speechless. You've lost it, he finally said. No, I whispered. I found it. I started to close the door, but paused. Oh, and before you try the key, I changed the locks. Happens sometimes when people forget which home is theirs. The door clicked shut. Outside, his voice cracked the night. You'll regret this. Maybe, but regret is for people who stay. I turned off the lights, set the new keys beside my bed, and slept for the first time in months, soundly, deeply, without dreaming of anyone else's name. The morning after the delivery, I woke up to a sunrise that felt empty in the best way. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the echo of my own footsteps, no sighs, no muttered complaints about burnt toast or missing socks. Peace has a sound, I realized. It's the absence of someone who disrespects you. I was sipping my coffee when my phone buzzed. Not Eric this time, Richard, his father. Lila, he said without preamble, his voice sharp as gravel. What in God's name did you do to my son? I stared out the window, calm. Good morning to you too, Richard. Don't play games. You humiliated him. The neighbors saw trucks, for heaven's sake. You moved all his things to some other woman's house. Accidents happen, I said softly. This isn't a joke. You've made a spectacle of the family. Your son did that the moment he said another woman's name in our bed. Silence. Then the sound of breathing that wasn't quite steady. You're overreacting. It's just a name. It's never just a name, I said and hung up. By mid-morning, my phone was lighting up nonstop. Messages from mutual friends, Eric's coworkers, even the PTA group chat. Emma, Lila. Is it true you kicked Eric out, Lila? Define kicked out. Emma. The whole town's talking. You really sent his stuff to Chloe's house, Lila? I returned property to its rightful owner. That one went viral in the mom's chat. I could practically hear the gasps through the screen. At 2:00 p.m., the universe decided to top itself. My phone rang again, an unknown number. Hello. Lila, a woman's voice. Shaky, furious. It's Katie. I blinked. I'm sorry, who? Chloe's girlfriend. Or should I say ex-girlfriend, now that your husband's junk is covering her lawn. Oh, this was getting better. She's screaming at him, Katie continued. At both of them. My boyfriend's sorry ex is trying to figure out why some stranger's furniture is sitting in our driveway. I kept my voice measured. You might want to tell Chloe to stop entertaining married men. Married men. She didn't mention that part. There was a pause. Then Katie let out a low whistle. Oh, she's gonna learn today. By 3:00 p.m., Sienna showed up at my door, holding her phone like it was a live grenade. You're trending, she said. Excuse me. She thrust the screen toward me. The neighborhood Facebook group, 50 comments deep. Photos of the moving trucks, screenshots of Chloe's meltdown, and one picture of Eric standing in front of the locked door, red-faced, shouting. The caption read, When karma arrives with professional movers. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my tea. I didn't post that. Doesn't matter, Sienna said, grinning. The internet has crowned you the queen of poetic justice. But not everyone was clapping. Around 4:00 p.m., Eric called again, voice like thunder. You ruined my life, Lila. I packed it neatly into boxes I corrected. You did the ruining all by yourself. You think you're so clever Chloe's girlfriend dumped her. Her landlord called because all that stuff's blocking the sidewalk. You made me a joke. You did that when you called me by her name. He went silent. Then his voice dropped low. You'll pay for this. Probably, I said. But at least I'll pay with peace. And I hung up. That night I tucked the kids into bed. They were quiet, unusually so. My daughter Maya finally whispered, Mommy, why isn't Daddy home? I froze for half a second before kneeling beside her. Daddy and I are having some time apart, I said gently. Sometimes grown-ups need space to think. Did Daddy do something bad? She asked, eyes wide. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. He made a mistake, but we'll be okay. From his bed across the room, my son Samuel added sleepily, Can we still have pizza Friday? I smiled, always. The next day brought more noise, texts, gossip, speculation, but under all of it, I felt grounded. Then came the call that nearly cracked that calm, the school counselor. Mrs. DeBerry, we just wanted to check in. Your husband dropped by this morning asking to see the kids. We reminded him visitation isn't formalized yet, so we declined. He what I asked, heart pounding. He seemed agitated, but we assured him everything was fine. We just thought you should know. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there gripping the edge of the counter. That's when I realized this wasn't just messy anymore, it was dangerous. Eric was spiraling, desperate to reclaim control over something he'd lost by his own hand. So I started documenting everything. Every message, every voicemail, every witness. Sienna helped me organize a digital folder labeled Evidence, just in case. It wasn't revenge anymore, it was protection. Later that evening, I got a text from an unknown number, no words, just a photo. Eric standing on Chloe's porch, surrounded by his boxes and her face twisted in disgust. The caption, "Guess the right name doesn't want him either." I didn't know who sent it, but I laughed until my stomach hurt. That night I sat on the porch with Sienna. The air smelled like rain. "Think you'll calm down?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I will." "Feels good, doesn't it?" I thought for a moment. It feels like closing a door that should have been locked years ago. We sat in silence after that, watching thunderheads roll over the horizon. Somewhere out there, Eric was raging against his own consequences. But here in my small, quiet house, I finally felt safe enough to breathe again. And that after 9 years of walking on eggshells was everything. Peace doesn't last long when a narcissist starts to lose control. By week 2, Eric's calls had stopped. But the silence wasn't mercy. It was the kind that trembles before a storm. I should have expected it. Men like him don't admit defeat. They rewrite the story until they sound like victims. It started with my job. I was in a meeting when my boss, Marianne, knocked on my office door. Her usual warmth was gone. "Lila, can we talk?" I followed her into the conference room. The blinds were closed. My stomach dropped. "I received a strange voicemail this morning," she began carefully. "From someone claiming to be your husband." I didn't flinch. "Ex-husband," I corrected softly. She nodded. "He said you were unstable, that you'd had some kind of breakdown and shouldn't be handling client accounts." I sat back in my chair. "Did he mention why?" "No," she said, her voice lowering. "But I've known you for years, Lila. I don't believe a word of it. Still, HR had to document it." "Of course," I said. Marianne hesitated. "You want me to forward you the recording?" "Yes," I said, "and thank you for believing me." As I left her office, I realized Eric hadn't stopped fighting. He'd just changed the battlefield. That evening, Sienna came by with takeout. We sat at my kitchen island while I replayed the voicemail for her. His voice oozed fake concern. "Hi, this is Eric DeBerry. I'm worried about my wife's mental state. She's been acting erratically, moving my belongings, locking me out of my home. I think she needs professional help before she hurts herself or someone else." Sienna slammed her chopsticks down. "Unbelievable. He's actually weaponizing sanity." I smiled thinly. "Let him try. I've got documentation for every step I took." Still hearing his voice, pretending to care, sent a shiver through me. It was the same tone he used to manipulate me for years. Then came Sunday, church day. I hadn't gone since everything exploded, but my kids loved the Sunday school program, so I decided to take them. I dressed simply, no makeup, no pretense, and walked through the familiar wooden doors holding their tiny hands. Heads turned, whispers followed like shadows. And then I saw him, Eric, sitting in the front row, arm draped casually around another woman. Not Chloe. Someone new, wide smile, fresh hair, the next replacement. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't look away. The pastor began to speak about forgiveness and accountability. The irony almost made me laugh. When the service ended, Eric made sure to intercept me near the steps outside. "Still pretending to be the saint," he muttered. I looked him straight in the eye. At least I don't confuse my prayers with someone else's name. A few people overheard. The whispers grew louder. He stepped closer, voice low but venomous. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said quietly. "You did that months ago." He flinched. I walked past him, my children's hands gripping mine tightly. 2 nights later, the storm truly hit. I pulled into my driveway after work and froze. The garage door was splattered in red spray paint. 2 words in big, angry letters, "Home wrecker bitch." The can still rolled lazily on the ground. My breath came out in short bursts. Not fear, just disbelief at how far he'd fallen. I checked the security camera, and there he was, Eric. Hoodie up, glancing over his shoulder, caught clear as day at 2:06 a.m. I felt an odd calm wash over me, the kind of calm you feel right before justice begins. I called the police. When the officers arrived, I played the footage for them. One of them, a woman maybe in her 40s, whistled low. "Your husband." "Ex," I corrected again. "Want to press charges?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I think it's time." Her lips twitched into something like approval. "Good. My ex pulled a similar stunt once. Called me crazy when I caught him cheating. Pressing charges was the best thing I ever did. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. The next day, Eric was arrested at his workplace. I didn't expect to feel anything, but when I saw the mugshot online that evening, I did. Not triumph, not pity, just closure. My phone rang an hour later. Richard again. "You had him arrested," he shouted. "He vandalized my property," I said evenly. "It's just paint." "It's harassment." "You drove him to this." "No," I said quietly. "He drove himself right into a police car." He hung up on me. By now the gossip mill had gone into overdrive. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. Some defended him, most didn't. The best one came from an old coworker of his. Girl, your ex showed up at work like a reality show gone wrong. People are calling him the spray paint Romeo. I laughed until I cried. Real tears this time. Not the kind he used to force from me during arguments. That night, the kids were asleep early. The house was quiet again. The red letters still glared from the garage, but somehow they didn't bother me. I could repaint it tomorrow, or never. Instead, I made tea, stepped outside, and sat beneath the soft hum of the porch light. For the first time in years, I felt safe enough to leave the front door unlocked. Because he was finally locked out of everything that mattered. And somewhere deep down under the layers of hurt, I realized something terrifyingly beautiful. I didn't miss him at all. The courthouse smelled like old paper and nervous sweat, the scent of endings pretending to be beginnings. 3 months after the moving incident, I was finally here, sitting in a chair that wobbled slightly every time I breathed. Across the aisle sat Eric in a pressed suit that didn't fit him quite right anymore. He'd lost weight, or maybe the arrogance that used to fill him out was gone. Beside him, his lawyer, a woman named Diane Morrison, the local pit bull of divorce attorneys, whispered something sharp in his ear. He nodded, but didn't meet my eyes. My lawyer, Tom, leaned over to me. Remember facts, not feelings. You've got all the receipts. I know I said, though my heart was racing. I'd spent weeks preparing. Screenshots, security footage, text messages, the arrest report, even a statement from the school counselor confirming his attempted unannounced visit. I wasn't walking into this as a scorned wife anymore. I was walking in as a mother protecting her children. The bailiff called the case. DeBerry versus DeBerry. Custody and property hearing. I stood when the judge entered a woman in her late 60s with the kind of stare that could melt metal. She scanned the papers in front of her, then looked up. Let's start with the husband's petition, she said dryly. Mr. DeBerry, your attorney. Diane rose, smooth as silk. Your Honor, my client seeks full custody alimony and retention of the marital residence. He's been wrongfully evicted by Mrs. DeBerry's impulsive behavior and emotionally manipulative acts. I almost laughed out loud. Wrongfully evicted. He didn't even pay the mortgage. The judge nodded. And your client's response, Mrs. DeBerry. Tom stood. Your Honor, the residence is Mrs. DeBerry's premarital property. We have documentation of emotional infidelity, property vandalism, harassment, and child endangerment. The respondent has a police record for said vandalism. The judge turned to Eric. Is that accurate? Eric straightened. It was a misunderstanding. I was emotional. Spray painting slurs on your ex-wife's garage is an emotion, yes, the judge replied flatly. Sienna, seated quietly behind me, snorted before quickly covering her mouth. Then came the cross-examination. Diane tried to twist the narrative. Mrs. DeBerry, she said, smiling like a snake. Would you describe yourself as a vindictive person? No, I said. But you did in fact have all of your husband's belongings removed from your shared home and delivered to the residence of his ex-girlfriend, correct? Yes. Gasps echoed softly in the courtroom. Diane smiled wider. And you find that reasonable behavior? I find it symbolic, I said, keeping my tone calm. When my husband called me by his ex's name during intimacy and told me to get over it, I simply returned what was his to the woman who apparently still owned space in his mind. Even the court reporter paused her typing. Diane blinked. So this was retaliation. It was clarity, I said. Then Tom stood. Your Honor, may I introduce Exhibit B? He handed over printed screenshots, Eric's text messages with Chloe. Flirty, intimate, dated months before the incident. One of them read, I still think about you, Chloe. Sometimes I wonder if I married too fast. Another, she's just safe, your passion. The courtroom's air shifted. Even Diane's expression faltered. The judge looked at Eric. Care to explain these? He stammered. Those were old. Just friendly messages. Tom held up another paper. Timestamped 3 weeks before he called her name, Your Honor. Eric's face went pale. Then came the final nail. The vandalism footage. Tom queued it up on a small screen. There he was, Eric hoodie up, spray can in hand, red paint gleaming under the porch light. The judge watched silently, then looked at him. Mr. DeBerry, do you see how this behavior might concern the court? He rubbed his temples. I wasn't myself. Clearly. When the evidence concluded, the courtroom was dead quiet, except for the faint hum of the ceiling fan. The judge folded her hands. Mrs. DeBerry, do you wish to address the court before I rule? I stood slowly. My voice trembled, but my words were steady. For years, I believed marriage meant endurance, that if I stayed calm and forgiving, it would eventually be reciprocated. But forgiveness doesn't work without respect. When he called me by another woman's name, I realized something. I'd built a life with someone who thought my pain was a punchline. I looked over at Eric. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't destroy this family, I said. He did. I just refused to keep pretending we were whole. The judge nodded once. Thank you, Mrs. DeBerry. After a long pause, the verdict came down. Temporary primary custody awarded to Mrs. DeBerry. Supervised visitation for Mr. DeBerry until further review. The residence remains Mrs. DeBerry's sole property. Alimony denied. Child support granted to the petitioner. Eric shot up. This is ridiculous. She made me look crazy. The judge fixed him with an icy stare. Sir, you didn't need her help. Laughter rippled softly through the room. Outside under the courthouse awning, Eric cornered me. His tie was crooked, his face blotchy with rage. You turned my kids against me, he hissed. No, I said quietly. You did that when you turned on their mother. This isn't over, he growled. Actually, I said, stepping aside, it's exactly over. The paperwork just made it official. He stared at me for a long time, then stormed off into the parking lot. Sienna joined me, slipping her arm through mine. You handled that like a queen, she whispered. I smiled faintly. Queens don't shout. They sign. That night, the house felt lighter than it had in years. The kids were asleep upstairs. The garage door still bore faint traces of red letters, but I didn't scrub them off. Instead, I stood there running my fingers over the ghost of the word homewrecker. Funny thing, I thought. He tried to destroy my home, but in the end, I was the one who rebuilt it. 6 months later, the world had gone still again. Only this time, the quiet didn't feel hollow. It felt earned. The house, once echoing with fights and slammed doors, now smelled like pancakes and crayons. The garage still had the faint red shadow of homewrecker under a fresh coat of white paint, just visible enough to remind me how far I'd come. I never repainted it completely. Some scars deserved to be seen. Eric had moved into a small apartment across town after his supervised visits began. The kids saw him every other weekend, usually at a local park under the watchful eye of a counselor. I used to worry about how they'd handle it, but children are resilient in a way adults forget how to be. Maya told me once while coloring, Daddy says he misses you. I smiled. That's okay, sweetheart. Missing someone doesn't mean you have to go back. She nodded solemnly like she understood. Life had settled into a rhythm. Work was good. Sienna and I had turned our coping chats into an actual side business, helping newly single women stage their homes for fresh starts. We called it New Keys. Every time I handed a woman her new house key, I saw a little of my past self in her trembling hands. Freedom never feels loud. It's soft, steady, like a lock finally clicking open. One afternoon, while volunteering at the kids' school fair, I met Nathan. He was at the ring toss booth, tall, slightly awkward, wearing a shirt with a coffee stain he hadn't noticed. His daughter, same age as Samuel, was laughing as she missed every throw. Here, he said, handing her another ring. Try again. Life's all about second chances. That line caught me off guard. I laughed maybe louder than I should have. He turned startled, then smiled. Sorry, was that cheesy? Only a little, I said. We talked for 20 minutes about our kids, bad coffee, and divorce lawyers who charged by the sigh. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier. No bitterness, just gentle sadness, the kind that made you believe in healing again. When he asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, I said yes, then surprised myself by meaning it. Our first date wasn't cinematic, it was awkward and sweet. He showed up 5 minutes early, held doors without trying too hard, and didn't ask about Eric until I brought it up. He listened, really listened. And when I finished the story, he just nodded and said, that must have hurt like hell. Not you'll find someone better. Not at least you're stronger now. Just acknowledgement, honest and quiet. It felt like breathing again. By Christmas, the house was filled with laughter. The kids helped me hang lights along the porch while Sienna supervised with hot cocoa. Nathan and his daughter dropped by with gingerbread cookies, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was performing happiness. It was simply there. Eric texted me the night before Christmas Eve. Eric, can I have the kids? Christmas morning. Lila. The agreement says Christmas Eve until 6 p.m. Eric. It's Christmas, Lila. Please don't do this. Lila, I'm not. I'm following the agreement you signed. Eric. You're still punishing me. Lila, no. I just stopped protecting you. He didn't reply. The next morning, the kids tore open their gifts under the tree. Maya squealed over her new bike. Samuel proudly showed off his Lego tower, and Nathan arrived with cinnamon rolls just in case Santa forgot breakfast. At one point, Maya looked up from her pile of wrapping paper and asked, "Mommy, are you happy now?" I smiled through the warmth building in my chest. "Yeah, sweetheart, I really am." Later that afternoon, I took a walk alone to the edge of the driveway. The faint red ghost of those hateful letters still shimmered under the sunlight. I ran my fingers over the surface, whispering, "Thank you." Because that night, the one that broke me had also saved me. It was the moment I realized that peace isn't found in forgiving the person who hurt you. It's found in forgiving yourself for staying so long. That evening, as we all sat down for dinner, the kids, Nathan and his daughter Maya, suddenly giggled. "Mom, he called you Lila instead of Mom." Nathan grinned, mock apologetic. "My bad. Promise I know your name." Everyone laughed, even me. But in that small, simple moment, something inside me finally closed for good. Because that a man remembering your name, your worth, your place at the table, was everything Eric had never given me. After dinner, I tucked the kids into bed. Samuel, half asleep, mumbled, "Daddy still loves you, you know." I kissed his forehead. "That's okay. I don't need him to." He smiled faintly. "You're happier now. Daddy said you seem lighter." "Maybe I am," I whispered. That night I sat on the porch while everyone slept. The air smelled of pine and cinnamon. I thought about how far I'd come from the woman frozen by a single name to the woman who now carried her own. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a survivor. I was simply me. And for the first time in a long, long while, that was enough.